Donald Trump wants you to believe that he is winning the trade war, but the truth is that he has been cornered, he is retreating, and while he stumbles, the rest of the world is moving quickly and in unison to strike back. In recent days, a historic event has taken place. The BRICS countries have entered a new era of unity. Xi Jinping and Lula da Silva are openly declaring the strongest alliance in history between China and Brazil. They are calling on the united global South to defend sovereignty, resist US pressure, and rewrite the rules of world trade. This is no longer just diplomacy. It is a direct challenge to American leadership. And what is most interesting is that Trump is not even trying to strike at China directly. He backed down again. Just hours before tariffs on Chinese imports were set to soar to 145%, he quietly gave Beijing another 90-day extension. Why? Because the United States simply cannot afford such a trade war with China. And this is already the second time Washington has postponed these tariffs. No new deal, no victory, just a pause. Because China holds the leverage, from rare earth magnets to shipments of Christmas goods for America. If Trump does go ahead with these tariffs, the blow to the US economy, supply chains of key goods, and industrial output will be devastating. Meanwhile, India, Brazil, and South Africa are being hit with harsh tariffs. But instead of breaking under pressure, they are closing ranks. BRICS is ceasing to be just a talking shop and is turning into coordinated resistance. If you thought this was only about trade, you are mistaken. This is a shift in the global balance of power, a world where the US is no longer the sole center of decision-making. If Trump keeps retreating, the global South may well break ahead for good. So let us examine what is happening. It is important to understand how reckless Trump's trade war has become. Instead of targeted measures, he has unleashed a hurricane that is hitting both enemies and allies. In just one night, 50% tariffs were slapped on goods from Brazil, 30% on exports from South Africa, and tough sanctions imposed on India for buying Russian oil. These steps do not just hit individual companies, they hit entire economies. And here lies the irony. The man who promised to bring jobs back to the United States is driving countries into unity against America. He has managed to turn BRICS, once a loose grouping mired in internal disputes, into a cohesive force. India and China had border clashes. Brazil often leaned toward the West, but Trump's tariffs pulled them together like magnets. And it is working. Trump has created what US diplomacy spent decades trying to avoid. A united front of developing nations coming together not out of love for each other, but because of a common adversary. And into this newly united BRICS steps Vladimir Putin. Putin is no saint, but in politics he plays chess while Trump knocks the board over. After the US tariff strike, he immediately called Modi, reinforced old ties, spoke of peace in Ukraine, and secured an invitation to the 23rd Russia-India summit. This move was an open signal to Washington. India will not allow itself to be intimidated and will not abandon cooperation with Moscow. Next comes Brazil. Lula's outrage at the 50% tariffs on Brazilian goods is immense. For a country whose economy heavily depends on agricultural exports, this is a major blow. Putin proposed deeper cooperation in trade, energy, and defense. Lula did not need much convincing. All of this is aimed at strengthening alliances before the US can sow discord inside BRICS. And Trump made Putin's task easier by striking at everyone at once. He stripped them of any motivation to move closer to Washington. In the end, while Trump boasts of being a master negotiator, he is cutting off his own levers of influence, handing partners directly into Putin's hands. And once these leaders get used to working with each other without the US, it will be almost impossible to reverse. At the same time, Xi Jinping is not merely ignoring the tariffs, he is calling them tariff blackmail. This is a direct accusation that Washington has turned trade policy into a weapon. Xi made it clear to Putin, China will not be intimidated. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is trying to maneuver. 30% tariffs on exports to the United States are a heavy blow for them as well. He speaks with both Putin and Zelensky, trying to remain neutral, but neutrality does not feed the economy. When your country takes such a hit, you look for partners who will not punish you. And right now, that is BRICS. Trump thinks he is isolating Russia and China, but in reality, he is isolating America itself. South Africa is not yet fully on Moscow's or Beijing's side, but each new tariff pushes it closer to them. This is what happens when you treat trade policy like a television show. You harm not only your opponents, you push away everyone watching from the sidelines. And when they begin to see you as a threat, alliances are formed to keep you in check. That is exactly what is happening now. The BRICS alliance, of course, is far from perfect. Brazil, for example, is still at the negotiating table with Washington, trying to secure exemptions from tariffs. But the key detail is that President Lula is doing this without abandoning a single commitment to BRICS. He keeps dialogue with the United States, but at the same time strengthens ties with China, Russia, India, and South Africa. This is no longer about choosing sides, it is about building a safety net that will catch Brazil if America turns openly hostile. And this is exactly what Washington should fear. When countries succeed in building alternative trade routes, their own payment systems, and shared resource networks, America's leverage will begin to weaken. Such changes are not built in a day, but once in place, they last for a long time. All of this is unfolding while the dollar is in a fragile position, and Donald Trump behaves as if everything is fine. The dollar is the foundation of America's global power. It is the reason why countries trade with the United States, lend it money, and trust its economy. But trust is evaporating before our eyes. Inflation stubbornly remains high, national debt is surging, and foreign investors are already wary. This is not the time to play games with the country's financial reputation, but Trump acts as though the dollar's decline does not concern him. When a currency is weak, any small shock can trigger a crisis, a reckless trade war, a sharp rise in spending, or another tariff strike. And here is the dangerous truth. Rivals such as China and Russia, and even some US allies, are waiting precisely for that moment. Their goal is simple: to abandon the dollar and replace it with their own currencies. The process is already underway. More and more countries are striking deals in yuan, rubles, or even gold. If Trump keeps pushing the economy toward the cliff, the shift will accelerate. And when that happens, ordinary Americans will be the first and hardest hit. In Asia, de-dollarization is already gaining momentum, and it will not stop there. The consequences will be swift and harsh. Oil, food, clothing, electronics, all will become more expensive. Loan interest rates will skyrocket, savings will lose value. The process could unfold quickly. Everything could collapse almost overnight, leaving millions of people in shock. The truth is simple: the survival of the dollar depends on its protection. And right now, Trump is handing America's rivals the perfect chance to strike. If they succeed, the consequences will not only be economic, it will mark the beginning of a full-scale national crisis. Against this backdrop, one alliance stands out: that between Xi Jinping and Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Everyone is saying that China-Brazil relations are the strongest in history. Lula responds with a pledge to resist unilateral actions and protectionism, which in plain language means, "We will not let Trump bend us." They are uniting not only in trade, their agenda includes climate, energy, and even coordinated political rhetoric about fairness in the global system. Xi calls it a shared future, Lula calls it sovereignty, but the meaning is the same. They will defend independence together. It is worth remembering that Lula has become one of the loudest advocates of de-dollarization. No other BRICS leader speaks about this as frequently and openly. Lula has repeatedly called for conducting international trade in national currencies instead of the dollar, and has supported the creation of new payment systems that bypass American financial dominance. For him, this is not just an economic idea, but a mission to reduce US influence over the global South. That makes him a direct threat to Trump's vision in which America must remain the dominant power. In essence, Trump and Lula are moving toward an inevitable clash. One fights to preserve the dollar's leadership, the other for its fall. If tensions reach their peak, BRICS could become the main battlefield in the global currency war. For Trump, that is the worst possible outcome. Brazil was never supposed to become China's chief partner in the Americas. Yet now, thanks to his tariff bludgeon, Xi and Lula are turning their countries into pillars of the Global South coalition. Trump promised that his tariffs would revive American industry, bring jobs back, and make the country stronger. But reality shows the exact opposite. Instead of industrial growth, factories are suffocating under the weight of higher prices for imported materials. Steel, aluminum, machinery parts, all have become more expensive. The very companies that were supposed to benefit are now cutting costs, laying off workers, or shutting down. The numbers reveal what Trump refuses to admit. Industrial jobs have declined, production growth has stalled, and export orders have disappeared. Other countries have imposed retaliatory tariffs. Farmers, who were promised prosperity, are drowning in losses as foreign buyers turn to other suppliers. Meanwhile, the global market Trump thought was under America's control simply moved on, building new partnerships where the United States is no longer needed. It is now clear that Trump had no plan for surviving the counterstrike, no strategy for preserving jobs amid rising costs, no foresight that rivals would adapt faster and smarter than expected. Instead of making America great again, his tariffs have made it more isolated, more expensive, and less competitive. And the key question now is this: if the rest of the world is building a system that works without the United States, how long will it be before Washington is simply no longer invited to the negotiating table? And if you want to stay informed about global shifts, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next episode.